Welcome, fellow seekers of the unknown. Tonight, we journey into the heart of a haunting tale, a night of joy turned disastrous. The story we unravel is one of fire and smoke, screams echoing against music, and the harrowing struggle of over 100 souls caught in the jaws of a horrific tragedy. I must warn you, the shadows we are about to explore are dark and deeply unsettling. The tale we will painstakingly unravel is not for the faint-hearted. Viewer discretion is advised. Prepare yourself, for we are about to step into the dark. As the clock struck 11:07 p.m. on the bone-chilling night of February 20th, 2003, a dark shadow began to cast over the Station nightclub in West Warwick, Rhode Island. The hard rock band, Great White, had just begun their performance, unknowingly heralding a haunting dance of death with their pyrotechnics, igniting the acoustic foam lining the stage. Imagine the flames, spreading with a ferocity that turned the dance floor into a battleground for survival. The panicked rush of patrons, their joyous night morphing into a horrific nightmare, the scramble towards exits that became death traps. Within minutes, the living, breathing nightclub turned into a fiery grave for 100 souls, leaving hundreds more physically scarred and emotionally devastated. A mere few moments into the band's opening song, the first spark of doom was lit. Pyrotechnics, designed to entertain and dazzle, turned traitor that night. Two of the fountains spewed sparks upwards, while two were angled off at 45 degrees, their gleaming spray a death knell in the making. As Great White began to perform their song, Desert Moon, tour manager Daniel Bichele ignited these fountains of impending doom. It was the angled fountains, their fiery showers mocking the desert moon, that ignited the acoustic foam surrounding the stage. Visual records of the night reveal the monstrous fire taking hold, climbing the walls and claiming the ceiling in just seconds. Patrons, entranced by the flames, were slow to evacuate, perhaps believing this terrifying spectacle was part of the act. After all, the band's music video for the same song depicted the musicians surrounded by flames. Yet, little did they know, the flames dancing around them were not an artistic illusion, but a deadly reality encroaching upon their lives. The night was just beginning, and the true horror was yet to unfold. As the seconds ticked by, each one heavier than the last, the audience, ensnared in the jaws of confusion, began to sense the horrifying reality. The searing heat, the choking smoke. This was no stage spectacle. This was a dance with death that none of them had anticipated. Images from that night bear witness to the monstrous blaze spreading its deadly wings, devouring everything in its path. The once throbbing heart of music and laughter, now a cruel theater of screams and cries. Hundreds of people, gripped by fear, pushing and shoving towards the main exit. But the exit was not a release. Instead, it became a death trap. The narrow corridor swiftly jammed with bodies, creating an impenetrable wall of desperation and panic. The heat intensified, turning the entrance into a blazing furnace. The air, heavy with the noxious smoke from the burning acoustic foam, became a toxic fume, snuffing out lives with each suffocating breath. The toxic smoke filled their lungs, stealing the air from their desperate gasps, their pleas for help swallowed by the inferno. And then, the unthinkable. As the inferno grew hotter, the flesh of those trapped at the door began to sear. The once lively faces distorted in the excruciating agony, their skin blistering, bubbling, and melting in the unspeakable heat. Their screams were drowned out by the roaring flames, their cries for mercy lost in the monstrous roar of the fire. It was a sight that haunts the memories of survivors and rescuers alike. The Station nightclub fire not only claimed 100 lives, but left more than 200 injured. Ty Longley, the lead singer for Great White, being among those that perished. Reports suggest that he initially escaped the building unscathed when the fire broke out. However, underestimating the severity of the situation and driven by a deep attachment to his instrument, Ty decided to return to the rapidly engulfing inferno to retrieve his guitar. In doing so, he placed himself back in the clutches of the fire and smoke that was rapidly consuming the club. Despite his initial escape, Ty did not emerge from the club a second time. He succumbed to the overwhelming force of the fire, his life tragically cut short at the age of 31. The devastating blaze left its survivors with more than just physical scars. The trauma of the event took a severe psychological toll on many, leading to cases of post-traumatic stress disorder, survivor's guilt, and other mental health struggles. It wasn't just the victims and survivors who were traumatized. First responders and firefighters who attended the scene were also deeply affected. Some of those brave men and women, faced with the horrific sights of that night, had their careers ended prematurely due to the psychological impacts. As the initial shock subsided, questions began to emerge. How could such a disaster occur? Who was responsible? In the quest for answers, numerous legal battles ensued. The band, Great White, their tour manager Daniel Bicelli, the club owners, Jeffrey and Michael Derderian, and even manufacturers and vendors of the acoustic foam used in the club found themselves embroiled in investigations and court cases. Bicelli pleaded guilty to 100 counts of involuntary manslaughter, admitting to igniting the pyrotechnics without a proper permit. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison, but was released on parole in 2008 for good behavior. The owners of the nightclub, the Derderian brothers, were each charged with 200 counts of involuntary manslaughter and reached plea deals in 2006. Michael served time in prison, and Jeffrey was placed on probation for 3 years and ordered to serve 500 hours of community service. Amidst the aftermath of devastation, a profound symbol of remembrance and healing emerged. A shrine, born from the collective grief and compassion of the community, stood as a testament to the lives lost and the indomitable spirit of resilience. In the days and weeks following the station nightclub fire, mourners flocked to the site where the nightclub once stood. In a solemn and poignant display of solidarity, they came bearing flowers, candles, photographs, and handwritten messages of love and remembrance. A makeshift shrine began to take shape, transforming the charred remnants of the club into a sacred space of tribute and solace. My deepest condolences go out to the victims and their families whose lives were forever altered by this tragedy. For now, I bid farewell, but remember, there is always more to explore into the dark.